200 miles, that's a long way to skate.
BBC Radio Manchester, satellite weather with Diane Oxbury.
Well, there are good spells of sunshine around as we speak, but I think as the morning wears on, we'll start to see the cloud bubbling up again, exactly as it did yesterday. The afternoon, well, that process will continue, but there will be a couple of breaks every now and then, so it's not a bad day. The winds are light, and despite the chilly start, your temperatures get to 15 Celsius.
Allan Beswick with you on the phones.
0161 228 2255.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Aye, all right. That television presenter, Mark Spate, remember him? Well, the inquest has said today that he committed suicide hanging himself with his shoelaces. He should have been an organist. He'd still be alive. Well, they all wear slip-on shoes.
Mornings sound better with Eamon O'Neill and Diane Oxbury.
Eamon and Diane.
In 1958, there's a great hullabaloo this week. The first time you could direct dial anywhere.
Oh, you didn't have to go through the posh operator?
Is that the operator on the line?
Yes, it is, sir.
Better get off, there's a train coming.
You bleep!
Eamon and Diane and you.
Last week, we spoke to Joan in Castleton, who was telling us about her husband being a bit giddy because he was going to Moscow. How's he gone?
It were worth £1 million to see his little face. He were like a 2-year-old.
Do you know, Joan, you sound like a mum, and the kid's going on a school trip for the first time.
Do you know, it's just like that.
The station with Eamon and Diane for breakfast.
How can I direct your call?
Back tomorrow morning from 6 at BBC Radio Manchester.
Good morning, you all right? Melting. Yeah, me too, I'm always all right, though. Telephone number if you want to take part in this. I don't know what it is. Whatever it is. The number's... I do know what the phone number is. I don't know what the programme is. It's just a sort of... Yeah, I can't even get that far. 0161 228 2255. The email address is radiomanchester@bbc.co.uk. And the text number, if you're that way, is 07786 206 951. That's it. That's the communication process. You can snail mail, but I'm not going through all that because it's more trouble than it's worth often. So that's that out the way. And there's a debate this evening. I was invited, but I'm not going. Well, it struck me as being a bit... Who cares? There's a debate this evening about whether dead bodies... They always say dead bodies, don't they? Isn't that a little bit tautologous? I mean, you don't refer to live bodies, do you? So they're not dead bodies, they're just bodies, aren't they? No, nobody uses the phrase live body. We're putting live bodies on display. Nobody says that. So there's no need to say dead bodies, they're just bodies. Mind you say bodies round here and everybody thinks it's a drink. But where were we? Yes. So there's going to be a debate as to whether bodies should be put on display. And for the life of me, I can't see what the problem is, particularly when the people who are doing the debating are, to all intents and purposes, creatures known as museologists. Museologists. It's not new, but I think it's only recently become an academic subject in its own right. But museologists are people who, when I say recently, I mean in the past 4 or 5 decades. But museologists are the people who study the display of things, works of art, exhibitions, that sort of thing. So that's what they do. And they're having this debate about whether bodies should be part of exhibitions. The two things that are being called into question are, first of all, the Body Worlds exhibition at the Museum of Science and Industry, and also the display of Lindo Man, or Pete Bog, as he used to be known round here before he went down to the British Museum. But of course, this is all more than a little bit old hat. Museums have, for a very, very long time, been displaying bodies in the form of Egyptology. Manchester University, Manchester Museum, is a centre of Egyptology, and they've been showing mummies' bodies for donkey's years. Donkey's years. Mummies are bodies wrapped in bandages. That's it. So they're bodies as well. There hasn't been any fuss about that. So I can't see what the problem is. None of them have ever complained. Well, I've not heard their complaints anyway. None of them ever rung here. If Pete Boggs listening, he wants to ring in, because we like gingers. Oh, he's got ginger hair. He might not have had ginger hair. He might have been pickled. His hair might have been pickled to ginger. Or maybe ginger was the predominant colour then, which I think would have been a cracking idea. And maybe gingers really rule the world and you don't know. Yeah. Well, they rule this bit. Any road. What do you think? Have you seen bodies on display? If you go to the catacombs in Italy, there's I've not been, but there's a monastery there. When once the monks snuffed it, they took them downstairs and just basically sat them down on stools. Yeah, little trestles. And they sat them down on trestles and left them. And you can wander along, you can go down and see them. There they are, all sitting there. Hello! Well, they don't say hello, I've got to be honest with you, they don't say hello. But there's usually some ventriloquist as you go past. He says, hello, how you doing? I think his lips moved. But no, I mean, does it matter? It surely doesn't. Doesn't matter a fig. They're dead, for crying out loud. That's it. They're dead. They have no thoughts on the matter. They're dead. They're just lumps of flesh. In fact, they're not even lumps of flesh by the time we get to see them. Well, I suppose they are in the case of Pete Bogg, because he's still got a bit of flesh on him, because that's the whole point about him. He's exceptionally well preserved. And also the other one, the Body Worlds exhibition. Again, the whole point of that is they do have flesh. Although I went, and frankly, I would listen to an argument that says it's all a big con and they're made out of plastic, to be honest, because they just look like plastic. But there, what do you think? Do you care? Would you mind if yours was on show? Exactly. Neither would I. I'm not bothered. They can have it if they want, especially if they're prepared to pay a couple of bob while I'm still alive, and then I'd be very happy to sell my body for anything. Actually, coming to think of it, there's a few things I'd sell my body for now. Yeah, exactly. Oh, yes. You've got to live in the winter. It's getting on. I'm sorry I had that thought. I have no control over what goes on in my head. Can I just say that? It's getting on for 12:15. 0161 228 2255. Noel in Old Trafford. Hi, Noel.
Hello, Mr. Beswick.
Hello, Mr. Noel. How are you doing? I'm all right, mate. What can we do for... Have you got your radio on, Noel? Because I can hear it sort of rattling round in the background.
Right, yourself.
Excellent, thank you. What can we do for you?
It's the programme yesterday. First of all, I'd like to hail the young lady what phoned through with faith in God. I'd like to, hail her faith, first of all. And you said something about who made God, because I was trying to get through yesterday, but I couldn't get through, so you said you want answers in that. Who made God? God created the world, but you're stuck on who made God. Well, it's straightforward. The Bible says it's playing in the beginning, from time begun. That's literally telling us that there's no one before or after him. He's the only true God, the God of heaven and of earth, who created all things. So I don't know if that's answered your question.
No, it's not. It's merely pointed up the ludicrousness of the statement in its own right.
Yeah, but if we take time out, you know what I mean, and humble ourselves.
No, I wrote down the word when you started talking. I keep notes of what people say. I've got them here going back years. I keep notes of what people say, but they're very, very shorthand notes, as it were. And when you started talking, and I realised you were going to talk about religion, I actually wrote down the word faith.
Yeah.
Because faith is, I think you'll agree, but do feel free not to, but faith as a word is a simile. It means the same in this context as religion. Do you agree with that?
Well, it depends how people want to.
No, I'm asking. No. I'm asking your opinion. I'm not asking you to speak on behalf of mankind.
Yeah,
do you think? It's a simple question. Do you think the word faith can be a simile for religion, belief?
Belief. Well,
belief.
It can be, yeah. What I'm trying to say
okay,
is,
well, that's fine. I've got that. Do you believe in the Bible? You appear to. Do you
I
believe?
believe too in the Bible 100%. I believe there's only one true God.
Yes, I don't need a recitation of your beliefs. We all can summarise what the Bible tells us. So you believe in the Bible, and I presume from that, Noel, but I still stand available for correction. I presume from that you believe in the words quoted in the Bible as being the words of Christ.
It's the word of Christ, yeah, the word of God.
So you believe?
I believe in the word of God.
My question was more specific, although I do accept the answer. But do you believe that the Bible is the true word of Christ?
I believe totally, 100%.
You believe totally 100%?
100%.
And one of the things, you might recall the incident in the Bible where Thomas was doubtful that the risen Christ appeared before his fellow apostles. Do you recall that parable?
I do recall that. Can I answer?
Well, should we carry on? Well, you've recalled it. That's enough. One of the things that Thomas said, if I remember my Bible teaching well enough, was he wouldn't believe until he could put his finger in the holes in his hands and feet and the hand and everything. Now, what did Jesus say when
Jesus said, after you, Thomas, doubting now, of all them who haven't seen me, but do still believe in me.
Indeed.
You know, so, yes, I mean...
Blessed are those, I think the modern sort of, biblical language says, blessed are those who have not seen and believe.
Exactly, yeah.
You accept. So would you summarise, would you be prepared to distill from that even Jesus acknowledged that if you want to believe in him and God, his Father, if you want to believe in them, a substantial part of that belief is faith, the belief without evidence. Do you accept that?
Alan,
do you accept
evidence is there in the word of God in the Bible.
So Jesus
all the believe for Christians, you know what I mean?
So Jesus didn't think that it was acceptable to believe without evidence.
Evidence is there, Alan.
Is it?
Look around us, the creation of God. We don't need to go any further. Where is the evidence? To die for all mankind.
No, where is the evidence?
Look at nature. Look all around you.
No. I'm not asking you to prove. Yeah. I'm not asking you to prove there's a tree. I know there's a tree.
Yeah,
I'm not asking you. I'm not asking you to.
Who created the tree, Alan?
Well,
it's created to God.
No.
Simple nature.
Remember the word I asked for. Evidence. Yeah. We both agree that the tree exists. Do we not? Right.
Yeah.
Now you say God made it. Am I correct in that supposition?
Yes, he made everything.
Where's your proof?
The proof is it's straightforward, Alan.
No, it's not.
The word of God.
No,
I believe.
No,
and there's millions like me who believe.
No,
that's what I'm trying to say to you.
The existence of the tree, I will grant you, the existence of the tree is straightforward. You and I could go along and knock on a tree. Its existence is straightforward. We have nothing to debate.
It's the creation of God, Alan.
No, its existence...
Look, head out to the stand here now. God is God. There's no other.
No. Do you think that faith is irrelevant because all you're really doing in your belief is deducing from evidence?
Faith is very important, Alan. I put my faith in God. I put my faith in God because He is the only creator God, Alan. He's the only creator God. There's only one true God, Alan. One true God. The God of heaven who made all things.
No matter how many times you say it, it doesn't make it fact.
Alan, it's facts.
No,
it's
just
facts.
because you say it doesn't make
it. The Bible is the most holiest book on earth. It's the most holiest book on earth.
Well, first of all, the Bible...
If we all took time out, Alan...
No.
And read
the Bible,
it properly, the guidance of God.
The Bible is not the oldest book on earth.
No, the only, Alan.
The only book on earth.
The holiest book on earth.
Oh, the holiest. My apologies.
It's the word of God. It's the word of God.
I apologise to you. I didn't realise you were saying holy. I thought you were saying only. Noel, it's been a pleasure. Not very informative, but a pleasure. Have a good day. 0161 228 2255. The Bible is the holiest book on earth. It is therefore, in Noel's view, more holy than the Quran. Although, frankly, there is one copy of the Quran that's quite holy, because an American soldier used it for target practice.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Headline News.
The prison service says a hostage situation at Risley Jail near Warrington is now over. One inmate had taken another hostage earlier this morning. In a statement, it's been confirmed that staff brought the situation to a conclusion at around 11:30. Police say there'll be no victory parade for Manchester United this Thursday if they win the Champions League tomorrow night. And the former Manchester City player Joey Barton has admitted assault and a fray. Manchester's weather dry and bright, highs of 16 Celsius. I'm Faye Rusco.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
Problems on the trains at the moment. Delays of up to 50 minutes are being reported between London Euston and Stoke-on-Trent area. Now, do be aware that it is having impact, on services up to the north. So the best advice really is to check with National Rail inquiries before you travel. Elsewhere on the motorways, generally, things seem to be moving around fairly freely. M60 traffic moving well between Junction 23, Ashton under Line, through towards Junction 6 at Sale. That whole stretch of the carriageway moving at a nice steady pace for the moment. If you're heading through the Collyhurst area of Greater Manchester, though, be warned that Dalton Street's still closed because of a building fire at the Old Mill between Rochdale Road and Collyhurst Road. The closure is expected to remain in place now until later on this afternoon whilst the building is inspected, with the diversion side locally. Any further problems you happen to spot, make sure that you get in touch hands-free. 0161 244 4951. I'm Carla Banks.
You're never more than 20 minutes away from the latest traffic through the day.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Steph in Old Trafford says, Beswick, you've already started selling body parts. The first one to go was your soul. The great problem with that, of course, is that the devil was the highest bidder. Alan in Rochdale. Hi, Alan.
Oh, hi, Alan.
What can we do for you?
It's about the law on swords. You know, the current law just been passed on law, the use of swords.
Yes.
We do an art called Iaido. That's like the art of drawing the swords in a set pattern, which has been handed down for donkey's years, you know, from samurai.
Okay.
You've seen a part of that in The Last Samurai, where they were doing it with wooden swords. Anyhow, we train with two types of swords. One is an Iaito, which means a training sword, and the other one is a Shinken, which means a live blade, meaning you could cut loads of things with it. It's a really sharp blade. They run about £3,500 to £4,000. And the Iaito is made of a composition of metals and alloy, zinc alloy, which if you hit anything, it would snap in half and break. Now, when we get to the airport, I gave them a printed out sheet, and I never have no problem at Manchester Airport going away. We were going with a team to Japan. There was a lot of people with swords, and we didn't have a problem. Now, on the way back, when we got to Japan, because I'll do the full rigmarole about it, when we got to Japan, straight away they said, can you open your case? Yep, no problem. Open the case. They put a magnet on, doesn't stick, so it's not steel or metal of any kind.
Well, if a magnet doesn't go on, it just means it's not ferrous metal. It could be brass, could be aluminium, but we go on.
Well, it's the they're made exactly. There's no difference in the make of looking at them. They both look exactly the same. When you can afford a live blade, you can just take the handle fittings off and it'll fit perfect on a live blade. No problem. We got to Dubai, no problem. We got to Manchester Airport, coming back. Oh, wait a minute. We'll have to go through customs. We go through customs. Now you're dealing with naive people that haven't a clue what they're looking at. So we explained it. I showed them a brochure which told the difference between the two articles. Oh, well, we'll have to ring the police. And the police come. Same thing again. They're very naive. All they had was a copy of the law on swords. I said, yes, but these are training aids. They're not like idiots buy. And they want to wave them about at shopkeepers and cut people in the street. These are what you call. I went through all what I'm just saying to you, and I said, put a magnet on. Puts a magnet on. I said, that tells you it's not a metal sword.
No, it doesn't. That tells
steel.
it tells you it's not a steel sword, yes.
Yeah.
Doesn't tell you it's not a metal one. I
made
promise.
of zinc alloy.
Well, yes.
It's a ferrous metal, if you want to call it.
No, it's not a ferrous metal, otherwise the magnet would stick to it. Non-ferrous metal is what you mean.
Well, one of them.
Okay.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, but let me tell you that a howitzer, the old howitzer that was, I've forgotten the size of the shell, but the casing that they used to lob at the Germans was made of brass.
Oh, that would go, weren't it?
Magnet wouldn't have stuck to that either. No. Pretty damaging, but go on.
And so they run all this, and I said, the law that they passed in its construction is been made by academic idiots because they're very naive at what they're doing. And I spoke to a guy who represented an organisation what went to ask about this, and they said, don't even go there.
Well, where are we getting to? Because we're going to run out of time eventually.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right, don't you worry, mate.
I'll move it up.
Yeah, please.
There's a vast difference between a steel sharp blade and the one that people train with. Now, I would suggest to the police that they would carry out the law as it speaks, but they would also have to consider genuine practitioners of the art of the sword who can prove...
Well, when you... Excuse me a moment. When you say they should, it comes down in the end not to how you want to interpret your behaviour, but what the law says. Now, if the law says, rather like with the handgun, I'm not comparing your sword to a handgun, but rather like the handgun, if they say a handgun is no longer allowed, then it's no longer allowed. And if somebody says, well, I've had mine years and I only use it for, I only dance with it. Doesn't matter, it's still not allowed. And the same may well, I don't know, I'm not an expert, but the same may apply to your sword, not on the grounds that you will do harm with it, but on the grounds if somebody else managed to get access to it, they might do harm with it.
So you would say thousands of people throughout the world that do the art of sword cannot do it anymore.
Rather like pistol shooting, yes. If that's what the law says, I'm not a lawyer, but if that's what the law says, as I understand the law, it is the sale, the purchase and the import of samurai swords. And as I understand it, the law makes no distinction between imitation and genuine, in that there is no difference. They have the same propensity or ability.
What we're saying is, when we carry our swords, when we're travelling with them, they're in a case, a hard case, locked up with a lock on it. And that's how we have to travel with it. Now, anybody with because they're selling in shops and in catalogues, steel, sharp swords, two boys went with one of them. And
but you see, let me just have a thought here. The sword you're talking about, the one that the magnet won't stick to, if I acquired that, stole it from you, borrowed it from you, bought it from you, and convinced you in the sale that I was another enthusiast. And then I went home and I got my little file out the garage and I filed it. I feel sure I could make it into quite a dangerous weapon, could I not?
Well, they're tapered on
the
the
answer's
edge.
yes or no, really, isn't it?
I've never tried that.
Does it come to?
Think I tried
does it?
that.
Does it come to a? I mean, it's not a matter of whether you've tried it. I'm asking you whether your ingenuity will allow you to consider it possible. That's all.
Well, you'd ruin it.
Well, I wouldn't ruin it if I had a different objective to you. My question is, could it be done?
No, I can't answer that because I don't know anybody that's had a go.
Has it got a point on it?
But yes,
Does
they
it
have a point.
Does it? And here's a question for you. If you were messing about with your sword, doing whatever you do, and you happen to fall and land on it in such a way that the point rested against your chest, would it go into it?
It would break.
It would break. It wouldn't kill you.
Because one...
You're relying on that, are you? Because I'm not sure I would. I've got pictures of them in front of me.
Nobody's daft enough to do it.
The world is littered with cemeteries where people who are not daft enough to do things died doing it. But never mind. What's your question in the end? Is your question that you think the law is wrong, or is your point that you want to know what the law is?
I want them to realise that there are a lot of people who are registered practitioners of doing the art, that if they're accosted by a policeman and saying, can he open it, he should be carrying his licence book from that particular association what he's with to show he's not an idiot.
Is there...
Yes, there's 2 or 3 organisations.
Thank you for answering the question. I'll ask it now, see if the answer still fits. Is there a register of these swords, like there is with guns?
No, I don't think there is.
OK. Is one required to have a licence?
Yes.
Issued by the government?
Well, it's not by the government.
Who's it by?
The association that's recognised.
But not by the government? It's not a government body?
No.
So it's not formal.
It's a governing body.
No, it's a governing body. Listen, the governing body. I could get a licence off the rugby league governing body that permits me to kick people in the head. It wouldn't make it legal. I'm asking you whether there is a government register of these weapons and a government licensing of these weapons, and you tell me the answer is no.
There never has been.
No, indeed, but that's what I'm asking you.
No.
You see, my problem is that I don't know the legislation. I know what was proposed, and I know that it was supposed to come in April this year.
Yeah.
Whether it did or not, I don't know.
Alan.
Right. Well, all I know of it is that the ministers, when they were discussing it and publicising the legislation, they were saying things like, we've recognised that there are special cases for exemptions for genuine collectors of the original weapons, and also acknowledge there's a legitimate role for the blades in some form of martial arts. But well, that's what the minister said. But what the legislation says, I do not know. And frankly, you need to find out from your association.
Well, I'm the president of this one.
Well, in that case, you need some legal advice, not just on the legislation, but on the not just from the likes of me or the Citizen Advice Bureau, even. But
when we do present the the correct way, and
none of that matters. The fact that you dress up and
to convince them at the airport.
Well,
that they're not.
It might well convince them at the airport this time, but it might not next. What I'm saying to you is, what you need to do is you need to find out precisely what the regulations say, because standing at the airport or elsewhere saying, I don't think the regulations meant to say that isn't enough. You need to find out what they do say, what exactly they say, and what that means. Because if a police officer takes it upon his or herself to arrest you for possession, you would then have to defend, not on the basis of what you think the law should be, but on the basis of what the law is in writing. And I think you need to find out.
Yeah.
For your own sake.
Yeah. Well, there must have been at least 400 with swords in Japan, and we didn't have any problems.
Well, that doesn't matter. There are something like, believe it or not, something like 100 million handguns in the United States of America. But if you had one here, you'd be in trouble.
Yeah. Now, the question that needs answering is, why did they allow shopkeepers, market stalls, to sell replica swords that are
because there was no law prohibiting it.
But I got a brochure in my newspaper. You know where you get the TV times and all that.
Well, the answer to your question will still be, Alan, that there was no law preventing it, and so people did it. And what the government have tried to do is to create a law that does prevent it.
Yeah, because I can go in shops and I can go on the market. And the newspaper I got was this Sunday, and it was advertising swords on a stand that you could buy quite cheap. But
well, I recommend...
They are dangerous.
I recommend in the strongest possible terms that you inform the police of that.
Yeah, well, I will do.
Good on you. Cheers,
I'll
Alan.
print some a brochure out.
I should print them a brochure as well, but if I were you, I'd get your association to pay to find out what the law is precisely. You may or may not be interested. Frankly, I'm disappointed. But the Newcastle midfielder Joey Barton was jailed for 6 months at Liverpool Crown Court today after admitting charges of assault and affray in relation to a confrontation outside a McDonald's restaurant in the city in December. So that'll be nice, won't it? It'll save his relatives some journeys. They can just go and see them both. Bill in Middleton, hi.
Hi there, Alan. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm bringing something that happened to the attention of your listeners on Sunday of last week at 4 p.m. There are valid reasons for this, and one of which is it goes back to the unfortunate young girl who was killed in a park recently. And my daughter was there with 2 of her friends and 3 young lads, 13, 14 and 15. And they were sat on a bench outside the farm area at Eden Park, and they were just laughing amongst themselves when 2 16 to 17-year-olds walked past them and then confronted them about the laughing. Was it being directed at them? They said no, they were just having a laugh and a joke. And then within literally seconds, these guys had pulled out a mobile phone, telephoned somebody, and 4 of their friends came round the corner and then proceeded to follow my daughter and the 3 young lads who by this time saw what was happening and left trying to make their escape, but they were chased, and they were set upon by by these 16, 17, 18-year-old youths, of which there were about 6 or 7 of them, and they battered them for no other reason other than that it was, I believe it was a premeditated attack, that they'd just gone out and they'd chosen them at random by being in that area of the park. Now, the point I would like to make is that nobody in the vicinity of where this attack took place offered any help whatsoever, and they were shouting and screaming, you know, can somebody help us? And what I'd like listeners to do, if ever they come across this, is that everybody now has mobile phones. If somebody ever sees anything like this happening, can they, at the least they can do is use the mobile phone to alert the police and try to apprehend these people who are carrying out these attacks. And the lads, when they after they battered them and jumped on one of the lads' necks and kicked him whilst he was on the ground, they were all then taken off to hospital, and the police tried to find the lads. I don't know the latest update on this. However, it is something which, with the bank holiday coming up, especially in the Heaton Park area, that people are aware of what is happening. And I'm not saying this happens all the time. I have no experience of that. All I can relate to is what happened on Sunday at 4 o'clock, and one of the offenders said to my daughter, "Do you want some as well?" In other words, he was about to start attacking my daughter as well. And the parents of the young boys obviously are distraught that their children could have been seriously injured, and that's really what I'm ringing about. If anybody does see anything in future, or if anybody saw this attack, if they could at least telephone the police.
Quite so. In other words, if you're not the kind of person who wants to put yourself at risk and intervene, then at least call the cops.
Yeah.
It's not a lot to ask, is it?
It isn't a lot to ask.
Good on you, Bill. Good on you. I hope people take heed. I hope they do precisely what you said.
OK, thank you very much.
All right, mate, thank you very much indeed. You heard that story, a very distressing story from Bill, more distressing for his daughter and her friends. It does go on. And, yes, it takes some neck to get involved, and not everybody has the neck to do it. No idea whether I would have or wouldn't have, no idea at all. On your own, when there's a few of them, you start thinking, well, what's going to happen there? I get involved and I'm dead. What's the point of that? But there's now to stop you making a mobile phone call, is there? Wouldn't kill you. And it might mean that they don't get killed either.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Headline news.
The former Manchester City footballer Joey Barton's been jailed for 6 months after admitting charges of assault and affray in Liverpool city centre. The prison service says a hostage situation at Risley Jail near Warrington is now over. One inmate had taken another hostage earlier this morning. Meanwhile, 140 fans who were due to take off from Manchester to Russia at 9:30 this morning are stranded because of problems with paperwork for the aircraft. Manchester's weather dry and bright, highs of 16 Celsius. I'm Faye Rusco.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
Although do be aware that there's still some problems ongoing on Virgin trains. Delays of up to 20 minutes are possible between London Euston and Birmingham New Street because of problems earlier with the signals in the Rugby area. Now, trains are able to run through the Rugby area on their normal routes. However, some residual alterations and delays can still be expected. Hopefully, normal service should be resumed by around about 1 o'clock. Now to the roads. Generally, things seem to be moving around fairly well. The M60 not doing too badly, and traffic on the M62 coming off the Pennines from Junction 20 at Rochdale onto 18 Sinister Island, again maintaining a steady speed. No identifiable problems on the M66, again moving well from the Edenfield bypass all the way down to the M60 at Junction 4 at Simister. Don't forget, if you can update me though, do get in touch. Make sure that it's hands-free before you dial, and the number's 0161 244 4951. I'm Carl Banks.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Mark Elliott.
Manchester United are due to train at the Luzhniki Stadium in Moscow this afternoon ahead of tomorrow night's Champions League final against Chelsea. There have been questions raised about the pitch, which was only laid 15 days ago. It's bumpy and has bare patches. But Alex Ferguson will be heartened by hearing that United have absolutely no intention of selling Cristiano Ronaldo. Our United reporter Steve Wyeth is in Moscow.
UEFA have admitted they're slightly concerned about the appearance of the surface for the final, but don't believe it will hamper the players. The artificial pitch, which England played Russia on at the same stadium last year, has been torn up and at great expense replaced with grass from Slovakia. The man responsible for that transformation is an Englishman, Matt Frost.
I'm totally disappointed with the whole project and what we're presenting for the final. It's acceptable, but it's a big personal disappointment for me and the project as a whole, because things haven't gone very well from the start, to be honest. That's Russia, I'm afraid. It's not a perfect world.
Well, win or lose here in Moscow, one issue for United to resolve is the future of Cristiano Ronaldo. His 41 goals this season have again increased speculation about a possible move to Spain. The Portuguese has made no secret of his dream to one day play for Real Madrid. However, United's chief executive David Gill says Ronaldo is not for sale.
I'm sure he'll be with us for many years to come. You know, he's clearly, as you quite rightly say, one of the best players in the world, if not the best, and he's at a great club winning trophies. He enjoys it immensely here. You can just tell that when you speak to him. So why would he want to leave? We've no intention of letting him go. We will make sure that he's very happy here, and as we do with all our top players.
David Gill ending that report from Steve Wyeth. And you can hear Steve at the Luzhniki Stadium in a special Manchester Sports from 6 tomorrow evening with all the build-up and full commentary of the game. Back home, David Perkins is waiting to find out if he'll be able to play in the League Two playoff final at Wembley on Monday. He was sent off in the semi-final, but the club has appealed and is waiting to hear if the red card will be rescinded, leaving him free to play. Meanwhile, Stockport County and Rochdale have been given parliamentary recognition for reaching that playoff final. Greater Manchester's 4 Liberal Democrat MPs have tabled a Commons motion saluting the achievement of the clubs, saying they embody all that is best about English football. They praise managers Jim Gannon and Keith Hill for the tremendous turnaround in fortunes for the club since their arrival, and congratulate the players and fans of both teams for their sporting behaviour throughout the season. The MPs wish both clubs well at Wembley. And if you want to go to Wembley with Rochdale on a club coach, you're too late, I'm afraid. The club says all 55 of its available coaches have now been fully booked. The future of the Reading manager, Steve Coppell, will become more clear this afternoon. The club's called a press conference for 2:30, where they'll reveal if Coppell is staying on as manager. He's been considering his future following the club's relegation to the Championship. In cricket, after drawing the first test at Lords against New Zealand, England have called up the Hampshire seamer Chris Tremlett for the second test. He replaces the injured Matthew Hoggard in the 12-man squad for the match at Old Trafford, which starts on Friday. Meanwhile, the England captain, Michael Vaughan, says spinner Monty Panesar could be a key player in Manchester.
He's certainly a very good bowler at the minute, but the more games that Monty plays, the more conditions he's asked to bowl to, the more different batsmen he's asked to bowl at. He's going to improve, and I thought in this game he bowled very well. He can certainly have had a few more wickets, but Old Trafford's a good ground for Monty. I think he's got 6 for the last 2 times there, so he'll be looking forward to travelling up north this next couple of days.
In rugby union, the Leicester centre Dan Hipkiss has been called into the England squad for next month's tour of New Zealand. He replaces fly half Danny Cipriani, who faces 6 months on the sidelines after suffering a fractured dislocation of his right ankle. The England team manager, Martin Johnson, has opted not to include another fly half, as he's satisfied he has enough cover in Sale's Charlie Hodgson, also Ollie Barkley and Toby Flood. And finally, for now in Rugby League, Oldham say Sunday's Northern Rail Cup quarter-final at Batley's been moved to a 12 noon kick-off. It's all because of football. Leeds United are playing in the League One playoff final, kicking off at 3 o'clock.
Follow Manchester United in the Champions League on BBC Radio Manchester.
We've had a lot of close calls over the years, and you don't forget these things because we should have a better record in Europe.
And there's the final whistle. Manchester United are through to their Champions League final, their dearest wish.
We had a great squad in '99, and that was used during the season. Similar this year, sort of our similarities.
We've played some great football in the Champions League this year.
Fate is fate, and I believe in fate.
The Champions League final. The build-up, the action and the reaction. Tomorrow evening from 6. BBC Radio Manchester.
Yeah, very good day to you. 0161 228 2255. Joey Barton, jailed for 6 months, out in 2, just in time for the football season. So says Gwyn in Norwich. Maybe the reason how and why God might exist doesn't involve being made or existing forever. And perhaps we should phrase the question, to what is God's existence attributed? That's from Colin in Bolton. Wow. Eddie in Lee, can I borrow one of that bloke's swords so I can kill him with it? I'm losing the will to live. Surely you're losing the will for him to live. Anyway, why do religious people get so angry and worked up? I thought they were supposed to be peaceful. That's a text from Dave in Woodley. They are indeed supposed to be peaceful. But sometimes, all of us at some time ceases to maintain our cool exterior. Not me, obviously. I'm always calm. Yeah. 0161 228 2255 if you've something to say. And Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. And you can text on 07786 206 951. Hi, me in Prestwich. Hi.
Good afternoon, Alan.
Good afternoon, sir.
I've been listening to you talking to that religious gentleman.
Right.
You should never argue with religious people because you could never win.
You can't win, indeed.
But what I wanted to ask you, you're a learned gentleman. Now, we all believe that Adam was the first man. Now, we won't argue about that. First man on Earth.
Well, if you say you believe it, I'll stick with you, Jaime. But if you say we all believe it, then you're implying I do, and I'm not going to be bothered. But go on, I think we know where we're going.
No, you don't know where I'm going. Now, God spoke to Adam, correct? Now, what language did he speak to him in? There's nowhere in the Bible that tells you about the formation of languages. So how could he speak to anybody? There was no such thing as language in those days.
Well, actually, you say, and I'm taking a stab at your particular upbringing, your particular religious upbringing, Jaime in Prestwich, there's a clue in there somewhere.
There's a clue there.
So when you say the Bible, I presume you're meaning the Old Testament.
The Old Testament or the New Testament?
Well, the New Testament does cover languages in a way, for it says that that when Jesus spoke, he was understood by everyone who heard, whatever their language. Now, given the Christian belief is that Jesus is part of the triumvirate, God the Son, God the Holy Ghost, God the Father, and all that stuff, given that as far as the Christian belief is that Jesus is part of God, then we can deduce from that that the New Testament says that God, when God speaks, he speaks in a language or in a way that everyone can understand. So there you are. That's my theological moment for the day.
Yeah, right. It doesn't answer my question, but there you
Well,
are.
yes, it does. It says that God has the ability to speak in whatever way he pleases, and whilst you're saying there isn't a written language at the time, well, of course there wasn't. There was nobody to write it. But there is a presumption of communication. So when it says God spoke unto Adam, it probably doesn't mean in Serbo-Croat or English or what have you, but spoke unto him via a series of noises that Adam was able, by miracle, to interpret.
No, well, thank you very much.
It's all right.
No, another thing is, who actually wrote the Bible?
Well, there are a number of different answers to that. The Matthew, Mark, Luke and John for the New Testament, I think you would have to inform me rather than me as to who wrote the Old Testament, but the scribes, I presume. But I don't know.
Well, how could they know events that took place, say, hundreds of years before?
Well,
It wasn't written down at the time it happened.
This is where we get into the realms of miracles.
Yeah.
I've just been listening to... I listened again yesterday, and I listened to an interview with a chap, and I'm struggling around trying to find out what his subject was. I mean, he was a historian, and he was talking about history, and he was saying that we know this to be the case because of the documents at the time. We know this to be the case for the document. I know who it was. I interviewed him. He's the man who is he's a historian, a sort of Roman historian, if you will, from Manchester University. I interviewed him some months ago, and I was reading his book just yesterday, and he was saying in the foreword that whilst he can turn to documents about much of what he's saying, there are holes, and he has had to extrapolate to fill those holes. So maybe if God is talking to you, you have no need of extrapolation.
Was it ever disclosed what was in the Dead Sea Scrolls?
I don't know whether they've finished interpreting them, have they?
No.
No, they still don't know. They need God to come back and tell us what he meant.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you something? Because I've only just read this. It's only just been published today. But researchers at what we might call the Jewish Centre at the University of Manchester tell us that the British Jewish population is on the increase. And it's recorded its first increase since the Second World War.
I would believe that because...
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah, the religious Orthodox community do have a large birth rate.
Indeed, that's precisely what it says. It says exactly that.
Yeah, that's
Dr. Yakov, is that how I pronounce it? Dr. Yakov Wise from the University's Centre for Jewish Studies said 3 out of every 4 British Jewish births are ultra-Orthodox.
Yeah.
So there you are. Isn't that interesting?
It is, but it's quite true.
Jewish Chronicle will be rubbing their hands saying, there you are, sales for the future. Good on you, Jaime.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day, mate. Ta-ra. 0161 228 2255. That information has just come in. It'll no doubt be in the papers tomorrow. But the number of Jewish people in the United Kingdom, the population, if you like, the Jewish population of the United Kingdom has increased for the first time since the Second World War. And it is because not entirely because I feel sure that some of the non-Orthodox Jews are at it as well, but it's because the ultra-Orthodox Jews have large families, rather like we used to say of the Irish Catholics, until we got the likes of Sherry Booth, who said, yes, I believe in God, but I'm not listening to all the crap he comes out with. Chris in Wigan. Hiya, Chris.
Good afternoon, Mr. Beswick.
Good afternoon, sir.
I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other night. We were talking about this series of tragic natural disasters in
Burma, China?
Yeah, Burma and China. We were watching the picture. Well, we're not together, but we both had seen the pictures of the poor chap, for example, underneath the concrete, having his...
The one on the phone?
Yeah.
Holy God, yes. Oh, dear.
And that really brought it home how absolutely dire and dreadful it is. You know, the poor fella's there, he's so near and yet so far away from being rescued. And then my friend said something to me that really quite gave me pause for thought. He said, but does it really matter? And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, does it really matter? I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, there's that many people in China that perhaps a few less thousand might actually please the government of that country. Less people to bother about. There's God knows how many people born every moment. We're constantly hearing, for example, from aid agencies around the world that a child dies every few seconds. He said, whenever I hear that, he said, I can't help but think. He said, well, I have two trains of thought. One is that, oh, that's awful. You know, just imagine if that baby was mine, if that child was mine, how absolutely dire and dreadful that this should be the case in 2008. He said, but then again, I think to myself, what if the opposite was true? What if that child lived? What if every child lived to become, say, 75? What sort of planet would we inhabit within 4 or 5 years' time? It would be completely untenable.
Well, yes, I think you're probably right in that. And
it got me to thinking, Alan, about that scene from The Third Man with Orson Welles in it. You know, where they're at the top of the Ferris wheel, and Harry Lime, the character, looks down at these dots moving below, and he asks Holly, whatever his name is, Joseph Cotton, he asks him, would he be really that upset if one of those dots stopped moving forever? And I thought, yeah, I understand that now. It's a matter of scale and how close you are to the proximity of the event. If you're actually there in the village and you're trying to feed a starving child with flies in its eyes and mouth, and you see that child expire in front of you, it must be absolutely heartbreaking. And yet, if you watch it from the comfort of your own front room, 12,000 miles away, does it diminish the horror of what goes on? Or is it not something that, you know, secretly we should think, well, that person's time was up?
It's all of those things, Chris. I'm about to do it again, I suppose, but hey, letters of complaint, meat and drink of my occupation, I suppose. But
you'll notice, though, Alan, sorry to interrupt you, that I've not expressed which side I'm on. All I'm trying to do is bring to people's attention the dichotomy that we may have in our minds.
Well, as I say,
ourselves to be humanitarians.
I frequently say, because it is true, that I actually, in terms of what I do about it, care more about my headache than I do about 10 starving kids in Africa.
Right.
Because if I get an headache, I do something about it. But frankly, I'm doing sod all for the 10 starving kids in Africa. So I clearly care more about my
When
headache.
you say I'm doing sod all, is that
doing nothing?
A statement of intent?
No, it's
a statement of what the
it's a statement. It's a statement of the present, if you like. What do I do to help the starving in Africa? Answer: sod all. What will I do tomorrow to help the starving in Africa? Answer: probably sod all. What do I do about my headache? I make sure it goes away. I care more about my headache than I do the starving in Africa. Was it ever thus? It's the point you're making. Proximity brings urgency. But I understand what you're saying also about maybe China's saying, look, we got 2 billion, we can afford to lose a few tens of thousands. Harsh, but not altogether untrue sometimes. Good on you, Chris.
There's a small matter of a huge football match this week, and we'll be in Moscow on your behalf. Eamon and Diane.
Tomorrow from 6.
I love the way that Manchester City Council, along with Trafford, have said they're not going to have a big parade because Thursday is a normal working day, as opposed to last Wednesday, which of course wasn't. Everybody gets Wednesdays off.
95.1 FM.
DAB Digital Radio.
And the World Wide Web.
This is Manchester.
BBC Radio Manchester.
At 1 o'clock, Joey Barton's been jailed for 6 months for assault, and a hostage situation at a Cheshire jail is over.
And United say Ronaldo is not for sale.
Well, this afternoon looks very pleasant, dry and bright with top temperatures of 16 Celsius.
And if you're heading through Collyhurst, Dalton Street's still closed because of a building fire at the mill between Rochdale Road and Collyhurst Road, with a diversion signed locally.
Good afternoon, I'm Faye Rusco. The former Manchester City footballer Joey Barton's been sentenced to 6 months in jail after a fight outside a fast food shop in Liverpool. Richard Stead has more details.
The 25-year-old admitted charges of assault and affray at an earlier court hearing last month, but restrictions on what could be reported were only lifted after he was sentenced this morning. Barton, who has one England cap, was appearing before Liverpool Crown Court after the fight outside a McDonald's in the city in the early hours of the 27th of December last year. The Newcastle midfielder appeared for sentencing today. The judge described the attack as violent and cowardly before jailing him for 6 months.
The prison service says a hostage situation at Risley Jail near Warrington is now over. One inmate had taken another hostage earlier this morning. In a statement, the prison service say staff brought the incident to a conclusion at around 11:30. Police say there'll be no victory parade for Manchester United this Thursday if they win the Champions League tomorrow night. Manchester and Trafford councils were involved in discussions, but it was decided a parade couldn't take place on Thursday because of safety concerns and disruption to the city centre on a regular working day. Meanwhile, United fans have been flying out of Manchester Airport all morning for the games in Russia tomorrow. 17 flights are going out today. These Russian fans say Moscow will be welcoming to United supporters.
Well, I think that a lot of Russian supporters, they would like to come here and they enjoy this great day in our life.
I like Manchester United and I will support this team in the final.
Meanwhile, TV licensing officers are taking advantage of tomorrow's Champions League game to check up on the licence of millions of people who'll be watching. With viewing figures expected to smash the 10.3 million who tuned in to watch Liverpool and AC Milan last year, officers will be out in force knocking on Manchester doors to crack down on licence dodgers. Charlotte Hancock is from the TV licensing department.
I know it seems mean, but we do know that a lot of people obviously are going to be watching telly on that night, and I think really it's not fair that so many of us pay our way. We can pay in monthly instalments, so we do make it possible for everybody to pay in a way that they can manage. And it's just not fair that there's a small minority that refuse to do that.
Gordon Brown's urging MPs not to lower the abortion limit when they vote this evening. Women can currently have a termination up to 24 weeks into a pregnancy, but the Commons will consider reducing it. The Prime Minister says the scientific evidence has not changed, and the former leader of the Liberal Democrats, Samin Campbell, agrees.
I'm going to vote for the status quo for 24 weeks, because it's not just the Science and Technology Committee of the House of Commons, it's the BMA, it's the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and it's the Royal College of Nursing, all of whom have said that there is no evidence since 1990 which suggests that viability is available any earlier.
And Stockport County and Rochdale football clubs have been given parliamentary recognition for reaching Wembley. The two clubs are in the League Two playoff final next Monday. Greater Manchester's 4 Liberal Democrat MPs have tabled a Commons motion saluting the achievement of the clubs, saying they embody all that is best about English football.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Will Perry.
Manchester United say Cristiano Ronaldo is not for sale. The club's chief executive, David Gill, says Ronaldo has 4 more years left on his contract and they have no intention of letting him go. He was responding to the recent speculation linking the player with a move to Real Madrid. UEFA say they're happy with the pitch for tomorrow night's Champions League final at the Luzhniki Stadium. The groundsman says he's disappointed with the surface that was only relaid 15 days ago and is bumpy and has bare patches. Steve Coppell's future as Reading manager will become clear this afternoon. The club's called a press conference for 2:30 where they'll reveal if the former Manchester City boss is staying on at the Madejski. He's been considering his future following the club's relegation to the Championship. Rochdale's Dave Perkins will find out this afternoon if he'll be able to play in the League Two playoff final at Wembley. He was sent off in the semi against Darlington, but the club has appealed and is waiting to hear if that red card will be rescinded. And finally, in Rugby League, Oldham say Sunday's Northern Rail Cup quarter-final at Batley has been moved to a 12 noon kick-off. That's because Leeds United play in the League One playoff at 3 o'clock.
BBC Radio Manchester, satellite weather with Heather Stott.
Well, it looks like another pleasant afternoon. It's going to be dry. We'll have some sunshine. The cloud is going to increase as we go through the afternoon, but nevertheless, we'll still see some sunny intervals and top temperatures will get to 16 Celsius.
Allan Beswick, halfway through your workday.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Aye, all right. Good. 0161 228 2255 or Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk, or you can text on 07786 206 951. And Jaime asked, what language did God speak? It's a good question. It's a very, very good question. Kevin doesn't help, obviously, because that's what Kevin does in life, spends his life plotting a way of not helping. And he's managed it again today. He says, God was a Geordie, hence the phrase, "Wee, aye, man, you shouldn't be eating that apple." Yeah, I know. I know. It's so obvious. You thought, didn't you? You just thought, good Lord, Diane Oxbury's just walked in. I know. I'm so good at accents. Anyway, if God had been a Geordie, we would have had no trouble at all, because no one would have understood the beggar. Indeed. Alexa in Wigan, hi.
Hello.
What can we do for you, Alexa?
Well, I'm going to put my spoke in.
Good on you.
Yeah. I did send you an email last week, but you chose to ignore it.
Well,
the belief.
Go on.
Yeah. The religion. I've got another slant on it. I have what is called knowledge. I know without a shadow of a doubt what I'm talking about. Just let me give you some facts and then you do what you want with them. Since the age of 12, and I'm just about to upload my 3rd book to my publisher, I have been sitting and writing the most incredible writings you have ever seen, and I've decided to go public with them now, right? Because I don't give a monkey's what anybody thinks or what anybody says, okay? So I have it all in black and white. If you want the proof, I'll send you a book.
Well,
hello?
Yes, writing something down doesn't make it proof.
Well, can I just add another little thing?
Well, please do.
I am a woman who has only basic education.
And?
Silver Street School and Richard Fairclough School.
Richard Fairclough, Dickie Flowerbags, good Lord.
Yeah. And some of the words, this is how I know this is not me that's writing these things. Some of the words that come through, I have to look them up. I've never heard them before in my life.
Yeah, that's what George Harrison said about the lyrics, the melody of My Sweet Lord. I'd never heard the other one before in my life. Cost him £6 million to be proven wrong.
Oh, please.
What?
I can send you a book and you can have a look at them.
And what will
these
that
are
achieve?
These are not any. These have never been written before.
Well, no book has been written before until it's written.
Well, I thought you were saying that, that Beatle plagiarised somebody?
That was the allegation, but his defence was I had never heard that melody previously. I had never heard it.
Okay. Anyway, darling, I prefer to call it a knowledge.
Well, you're entitled to do that.
Something I know.
Yeah, you're entitled to that.
And I can prove it.
Where's the proof?
Will I send you? Will you allow me to send you one?
Well, I can't stop you.
No, but I don't, I'm not going to waste my time if you're
well-
not interested in looking.
Well, when the book arrives, assuming it does, what I will have in my hand is a book. I will also have in my mind your testimony that you wrote this, should we say, with knowledge that you didn't realise you had. Well, that doesn't actually prove the existence of anything to me.
Well, how would you accept this? That a lot of years ago, I was trying to push against this. I don't want it. Frighten me to death. And these writings are signed with a signature. And I went to the Wigan Library and asked for, can they find the signature of this man who is sending this inspiration through? And they didn't have a book there and then, but they went and got one, the Guinness Book of Signatures. And I wouldn't go for that book for a fortnight. I was terrified. But when I did go for it and I opened it and I checked it, it was the exact same signature. Now tell me what that is. I need somebody to tell me what...
I have no idea, but I would hardly perceive it to be evidence of the existence of an omnipotent being.
No. Okay, I can only give you the facts.
Indeed you can.
And for me, it's not a religion, it's a knowledge.
I understand that. I have no problem. You see, what I never understand about God botherers is that whilst I'm perfectly happy, I don't just mean tolerant of, whilst I'm perfectly happy for people to believe whatever they believe, unless, of course, it's harmful, and I'm again that, harmful to them or harmful to others. I'm perfectly happy for people to believe whatever they want to believe. If people want to believe in an omnipotent being, good on them, particularly, as is most often the case, overwhelmingly most often the case, particularly if it helps them deal with the tribulations of their life.
Yeah, I agree.
Fantastic. Good on them. What I don't understand is there is a propensity amongst God botherers to think that everybody else has got to believe what they believe. It's like Manchester United fans saying you really must be a Manchester United fan. Why?
Yeah, but I don't believe, darling, I know.
Well,
anyway...
You see, the difference between belief and knowledge is sometimes delusion.
Oh, dear.
I've nursed people who actually knew that there were monsters eating their brains.
Yeah.
Peter Sutcliffe murdered all those prostitutes and some who were not because he knew God wanted him to. Knowledge is a dangerous thing when it's based on an illusion. And you may laugh, but tell that to the
No,
relatives.
I'm laughing at the way you turn the conversation round.
I've not turned it round. I'm merely using the words you offer me. I appreciate you've said you don't... you only have the words from Silver Street and Dicky Flower Bags. But perhaps you should come on and discourse with the words that you use in your book, and then we might get a little further. But at the moment, you offer me an example of your knowledge that makes you write books, and I say, well, that's fine, but the same knowledge made Peter Sutcliffe murder women.
I don't think it's the same knowledge, and that's really very naughty of you to suggest that.
Perhaps it's not naughty. Perhaps it's merely pointing out the realities.
OK, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll send you one of these writings, one page, and
just
then I'll ring you.
I can manage a page.
Right.
By all means, ring me.
I will.
Have a good day.
OK, bye.
0161 228 2255. If you've something to say, well, that's fantastic. Even if you absolutely know. 0161 228 2255. Mike in Flixton. Hi, Mike.
Hello, Alan. How are you?
I'm very well. What can we do for you?
I spoke to you a couple of years ago, actually. Anyway, it's great to speak to you. I'm a God botherer, as what you call it. And I can understand, I was listening to the conversation yesterday, and I just so wanted to get on the radio, but actually it can't be done. You know, people can't be persuaded about God. You just need to experience him. And for me, you know, I'm 47 now. Yeah, 47. And it's a long story, but me and my wife started going to a church about 12 years ago. I've
Why?
been a Christian for 12
Why?
years. Well,
why did you start going? Why suddenly out of the blue you start going to church? Well, the pub's closed.
Well, actually,
Why?
the reason is because my best friend, who I sort of came up through school with, and we sort of remained close, he just said he'd become a Christian, and I said, what do you mean? I thought you were already a Christian. Cause
Let me offer you something daft. If you'd have said, actually, I've taken up murder, would you have thought, well, he's been my best friend for years, I'm going to go and kill somebody?
Can I just share with you?
Please share.
And hopefully it's not too boring. But I just wanted to tell you, so I went to church because my friend said I'd just become a Christian. He used to live in Denton on the other side of Manchester. And because I've seen him change over like a year period, because I was the closest to him, so I just knew that he'd changed. I just knew that he had something. And then he told me about a local church where we live in Flixton, and we started going to the church. Now, I just want to tell the people on the radio and you that, you know, I could try and explain the taste of coffee to people, but until you actually taste it for yourself, you can't really, you know, I mean, I could explain it. People have been on the phone and tried to explain God, but you can't really explain God until you experience him. And for me, I mean, I'm a mechanic, and I still am a mechanic, but I've led many people to the Lord Jesus Christ, because that's what we do, you know. We don't all of a sudden put sandals on and go to the other side of the world. You know, there's a calling for that, but God called me to, as a mechanic, just reaching people on a daily basis. I don't blast it in the face, or sometimes I have, and I've made mistakes. But I think the most important thing is that I want to tell you is, you know, I just met people that genuinely had what I thought was something that I didn't have, and they told me that there's a hole inside every person. And I always explain it to people like, when you first buy a brand new car, and then you drive it home that night, and you just put it on the drive, and you look at that car, you feel quite good inside, don't you? But after a while, the monotony wears off, and then you want another car or another house. But Jesus said, I am the bread of life. And since I've become a Christian, you know, God has filled that area, because the only thing I want to do is to serve him and to love him. Anyway, getting away from religion a little bit, because I hate religion, and it was religion that put Jesus on the cross. If you ever read the Bible, you can see that. The most important thing for me is, and I want to tell people and share with people, and I know people are listening, and I know people are going to take the mickey and things like that, but I actually prayed a prayer, and I think I was really genuine in my heart, because you can never understand with your head. I suppose there was no major problems in my life, you know, I was quite happy, but I just wanted something that they just told me that Jesus was real, and he wanted to come close to me and be my best friend. And it might sound odd to people, but that's what they were saying. But I actually became a Christian, and I invited the Lord into my life, into my heart, not knowing the consequences. And I didn't really feel any different until about 6 weeks later, and I was on the way to church in my car. And all I can explain it to people is like, I was in the car, I drove into this lake, and the windows were down a little bit. And then all this water started to come into the car. But this water I was feeling, like a manifestation or a spiritual experience, was like this love, this like liquid love, and it was going straight through my body. Now, I knew at that point that that I was separated from God because of my sin. And in that moment, I believe God gave me that revelation, or he allowed that manifestation in me, in my body. So I knew it was true. So that would inspire me to hopefully lead people to Jesus. And over the years, I've sort of spoke to a lot of people. And, you know, sometimes I've been a bit of a religious person myself and tried to ram it down the throat. And I've made mistakes. But, you know, people have the wrong idea of Jesus. You know, he's a wonderful... Jesus didn't come to condemn the world. He came to tell us that there's a loving Father. And because of our sin, you know, people will jump on that and start getting religious about it. But it's something, it's just things in our life that separate us from God. And I want to be close to God. You know, the Bible says when Jesus died on the cross, that curtain from top to bottom, and I can explain that a little bit more, but we probably haven't got time, got ripped in two. So that means I can come into the presence of God. not because of my righteousness or my holiness, but because of his righteousness. And I tell you, when I pray, I'm in the presence of God. And I feel him, and he manifests himself around me, and I feel his love. And, you know, that's experiencing, you know, tasting the coffee.
Well,
now,
Mike, can I just say, because you're clearly in close contact with the chap, can I just say to you, next time you speak to him, will you give him a message on my behalf? And that is, thank you for leaving me alone.
With Becky Want, it's Friday afternoon, every afternoon. Every afternoon.
I've spent every single night for the last, well, as long as the sun's been shining, in the beer garden of the local pub. And I never go to the pub. I go to the pub twice a year, but, you know, I can't stay away. Obviously, I'm on the lemonade every evening. You understand that, don't you?
More Manchester, more Becky.
It's sexy, isn't it, belly dancing? It came across as something very sexy to Simon Cowell.
He had a very funny reaction.
Do you like him?
He's definitely got something about him.
Oh, he has. He's got more than a little something about him.
Becky Want.
Very much looking forward to it, I have to say.
This afternoon from 2.
At BBC Radio Manchester.
Who wrote the Bible? Lewis in Bolton sends a text. Who wrote the Bible? My copy says it's supplied by the Gideons. Perhaps they wrote it. I hope it helps. Thank you very much indeed. And again, Lewis in Bolton says, Alan, so Chris in Wigan is having an epiphany? Or is he just hoping he won't have to donate cash? That is very, very cruel. And you suffix with only having a joke. Yeah. Not quite having a joke, if I may say, Lewis. 0161 228 2255. You've something to say, that's fine. Manchester will be, I'm sure, happy to hear it, whatever it might be. Were you converted? By Mike.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Headline news.
The former Manchester City footballer Joey Barton's been sentenced to 6 months in jail after a fight outside a fast food shop in Liverpool. Members of the Police Federation in England and Wales are believed to have voted overwhelmingly in favour of lobbying the government for the right to strike. It's all because of a row over pay. And Stockport County and Rochdale football clubs have been given parliamentary recognition for reaching Wembley. The two clubs are in the League Two playoff final next Monday. Manchester's weather dry and sunny, highs of 16 Celsius. I'm Faye Rusco.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
News now on the trains. Thankfully, delays have now ceased to be on Virgin Trains. Of course, we did have some problems earlier on in the Rugby area with the signals, and that had an impact on trains between the North and London Euston. But as I say, everything back to its normal schedule again now, thankfully. Now to the roads. I'm afraid we still have restrictions in the Collyhurst area of Greater Manchester. Dalton Street around Rochdale Road and Danzig Street still closed off again because of that fire at the old mill. The closure is expected, I'm afraid, to remain in place now until later on this afternoon whilst the building is inspected. For the moment then, a diversion is signed locally for you. If you're heading through the Poynton area, the London Road on the A523, we're still one lane down whilst bridge maintenance work continues both ways between First Avenue and Adlington Park. Work's taking place at the moment on the Hope Green Railway Bridge. Hopefully all should be complete by around about the 12th of June. Any further problems you happen to spot on the roads or on public transport, do get in touch, let us know about it if you can. Hands free 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
Helping Manchester, help Manchester. BBC Radio Manchester Interaction with Linda Kay.
If you've ever been to court for anything, you'll know how worrying it can be, especially if you're on your own. The Personal Support Unit is there to help people when they come to court for civil cases, things like bankruptcy and child custody.
What we do is we provide volunteers to support anybody who's coming to court by themselves.
Sarah Harris.
Often you're dealing with something that's really important, going to have an effect over the rest of your life. If it's something to do with your children or your house or any money problems, then it's something that you're going to be emotional about, and so being by yourself is really difficult. We don't provide legal support, but the support we offer is personal and emotional.
You don't need any qualifications to be a PSU court volunteer, but you do need to be a good listener with a bit of life experience.
What people want from a volunteer can vary. It might be something as simple as just directions and help around the building, whereas somebody else may need somebody to sit with them in court, help them prepare what they want to say to a judge, and sit with them afterwards if the outcome of their case isn't what they were hoping for. To have somebody to talk to that about and decide where to go next is really valuable.
As a court volunteer, you only need to give couple of days a month. So if you think it might be for you, call Interaction and we'll tell you more. 0161 244 4321.
BBC Radio Manchester Interaction with CSV Broadcast. 0161 244 4321.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Anthony says via email, further to your phone call from Mr. Holiest Book in his subsequent blind faith rant, it was interesting to hear his reaction, especially after watching the Channel 4 Dispatches programme last night, highlighting the massive upsurge in hardline Christian groups and their ever-increasing influence within the Houses of Parliament and their access to politicians and people in places of power. Interestingly enough, says Anthony, one of the main aims proposed by the church elders, leaders, was to phone into as many radio shows as possible to spread the word and defend vehemently against the non-believers. So he may well be in for a busy few months yet, Alan. Oh, I think I'll cope. 0161 228 2255. Irene in Chatterton. Hi, Irene.
Hello, Alan.
What can we do for you?
I'm sure you'll be able to cope with me very easily. I'm sorry. I've enjoyed listening to your programme for years and years, and I love all the different aspects and all the different types of feelings and types of people. But I don't know why, but you seem now to be a little bit more aggressive with them, and the language that you're using is coming out more. And when people want to just say to you how they feel about something, yes, OK, it's good of you to listen and to let us all hear them, but it is a bit upsetting to think that that person will be putting the phone down and walking away, and then you've come out with the quip that you did with the last gentleman speaking. So I'm sorry, Alan. I won't be able to listen for a little while and see if things change then.
OK, bye-bye then.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Neil in Bebington. Oh, it's not Neil in Bebington. Neil in Bebington is an email. What is it? Going God Week or something? I have no idea what week it is. I'm sure the United Nations have declared it to be some week or other. I have no idea which. Michael in Lee, hiya.
Hi, Alan. These beliefs, you're on about in religion and all that. Did you have a belief last Friday that Warrington was going to beat Wigan?
I think if you were listening last Friday, you will have heard me say that I didn't have such a belief. But I did have a fantastic degree of hope.
You're all right. Well, what got me, though, last... was it Friday? Or last Saturday, you were in Lee Market.
I may well have been, yes.
Yeah, and I said, Luke Beswick's there, and I think you heard me. And last thing I thought saw was your ass going down the market.
Right.
I thought you heard me, and that's what I think it was. Is that right?
You thought... I'm trying to remember. I think I might have been, yes.
Yeah, and I tried to catch up, but you were too fast for me.
Well, there you are, you see. Some of us have to keep moving.
Let's get to these religious nuts.
Please do, yes.
I can't understand how this god or gods can let these accidents, disasters and people dying for no reason at all, and these people turn around and say God works in mysterious ways. Can you enlighten me a little bit on why they say these things like that?
I think the phrase God works in mysterious ways is a euphemism, and a perfectly acceptable euphemism, but a euphemism for I don't understand why it happened.
Oh, is that how it's done? All right, but they keep coming back with all these religious things, and it just gets on my nerves, this. And,
why?
Well, I was brought up in a very religious family. But after the age of about 15, I just went the same way as you. Don't want to know about religion, because I think it was... Well, it rules our country, you know what I mean? Why should they have an input into the government, the church? Why should they have an input into what's been, the rules of our land?
Well, if you mean why should bishops or archbishops or whatever they are, bishops, aren't they? Why bishops should have a number of bishops, and we don't really know which ones in advance, but why should a number of bishops have an automatic right to sit in the Houses of Parliament, albeit in the Lords? Well, OK, I can discuss that with you on the grounds of democracy and all the rest of it, but religious people have as much right to express their views as any others. And frankly, many of the great social heroes of history were social heroes motivated, for want of a better term, by their God.
Yeah, but why is religion dying out?
It's not.
Is it increasing?
I wouldn't like... depends on your definition of dying out. There are...
There's not as many going to church, is there?
Well, that's not the only measure. That's why I hesitate. There are certainly fewer that go to your traditional Christian Church of England church these days than did decades ago. But that doesn't mean that religion's dying out. I still believe if you canvassed every living citizen in the United Kingdom, or living subject in the United Kingdom, and asked them if they had a faith or a religion, I think they would, in the majority, say yes.
Well, yeah, I can understand that, Alan, but...
I don't think it's dying out.
But I think it is myself, and I don't think we need it myself.
Well,
I honestly don't think we do.
That's a separate matter, but religion, if you like, fills that place. I mean, Mike, who went on for about 7 minutes earlier, he was going on about the space in every human being. And the great difficulty we human beings have, is our brains have developed, or if you wish, we were given a brain. It doesn't matter which you believe, but our brains were developed in such a way that we question everything. And there are some questions that are very, very important questions, but we can't find an answer to.
Yeah, but it's indoctrinated into us from a very early age that to believe in a God or whatever it is, you know what I mean? And that's where it comes from. If you didn't give that child from the start religious indoctrinated, you know, that child would make its own way without that religious beliefs as, you know, God did open the seas and...
You're quite possibly correct in all that you say. However, that child, if it was just moderately intelligent, it doesn't have to be a genius, just moderately intelligent, that child would at some point start to ask of itself the questions, why am I?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I here? Why are we here?
That happened with me when I was about 15, when I said, I don't need it, you know what I mean?
People go through it. I mean, I still don't know the answer. I've decided to not question it anymore, but I still don't know why mankind is in the power on this planet that it is. I still don't understand how the Earth came into being. For some people, that's an important question, and given that we can never know the answer, then an answer that entitles them to sleep easy is a valuable answer.
Well, some people rest at night with that, but I don't.
Well, yeah, but that's not to diminish those that do.
Yeah. I don't disrespect people, you know. I mean, everybody's entitled to their own beliefs, but me, no, I don't, and I don't want it thrown down my throat. You know, you hear it, they keep going on about religion, this and these disasters were happening. They're praying to God and they're asking Jesus to do this, and nothing ever happens.
Well, something does happen. That's the problem, you see. Something does happen.
Man does it, not God.
Well, it doesn't matter. Ignore all the disasters. Let us assume that something horrible happens in an individual's life, whether it's a localised thing or whether that person has died along with 10,000 others in an earthquake. And the survivors turn to their God. Now, they believe that their God is some external being. And so they believe they are speaking to an omnipotent being who has power and domain over the whole of everything.
I think most of us have done that in our lifetime.
Yes, but what I'm saying is that the fact that there is this entity, be it external or internal, that can enable somebody to get to the next day when they are in tribulation, the fact that this entity exists means that it's worth having. The number of people who come off alcohol at Alcoholics Anonymous and end up in faith, the number of people that come out of drug addiction and end up in faith. You could say that they're using alcohol, they're using drugs, they're using other things to fill the hole that Mike referred to earlier, the hole in the individual, this space inside us, and they're using alcohol or whatever to fill that space, and they change their filler, if you like, for one of religion, so they get comfort from that. Now that has to be something to be applauded. You see, when people say to me, are you an atheist, I very rarely say yes. For although I emphatically do not believe in the God of the Bible and the God of the Quran and the God of all the other holy books, I do believe that there is something in us all that is different to the flesh and the bone. Now, if somebody wanted to call that a God, then fine, I'm happy with that. But there's something about humans that isn't about the other species. What is it? Do you know? Because I don't. What is it? Nobody knows. 0161 228 2255. If you say that the God is the thing in me, by that I mean you, we each as an individual say that the God is the thing in me, then that's on the edge of believable. If you say that God is external and he made the mountains, well, that's a bigger step. 0161 228 2255. Gren in St Helens, hi.
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, first of all, the woman who was on before, she was obviously a barn pot, wasn't she?
No.
Well, in the sense that she believes something, and I'm with you. If she gets comfort from that, no problem for me.
Absolutely.
I mean, it gives a comfort. Now I believe that hopefully there is something maybe greater than just man alone, whether it's Jesus Christ or some other God. It is another point. But especially with Mike, he was on, wasn't he? If Mike had been born, let's say, in Japan, and his friend there says, let's go around the temple, would he now be a true believer in Shinto, which is the, basically praying to your ancestors? If he was born a Muslim, this is why I have a problem with the people who say their God is the right God, yours is wrong. It's very much, in my opinion, an accident of birth. If you happen to be born into a culture that is predominantly of a particular religion, there are few people who do not follow that religion and prescribe to it. If they do prescribe to religion, i.e. there's not many, there are definitely people there are definitely Christians in Pakistan who were born as Pakistanis who chose to follow Christianity. But they are the minority, just as like the Hindus or etc. I mean, you could take it to the extreme that the Indians, the native Indians in the Amazon basin don't believe in Christianity unless they have been actually converted. So it's I just find religious people, especially the zealots, are extremely arrogant in their belief that theirs is the right and only truth.
But zealots are not the measure of a belief system, whether it's a faith or politics. It doesn't matter, or even nationality. The zealots are not the people that we should measure it by, for they are, by their very nature, obsessive compulsives, and therefore probably, if analysed accurately, are suffering from some kind of illness.
Yeah.
They're the zealots. You can't, you can't judge a faith.
No.
You have to go to the ordinary.
Just as I don't judge the Warrington rugby supporter who goes and kicks somebody's head in. He's not representative. All I'm saying is that there is a track upon these religions that they don't do themselves any favours by expounding their religion in such.
Well, again, I disagree. As you just alluded to, I'm a rugby fan. Yeah. I dislike football. I do sometimes watch football because I think it's part of my job, but I don't like it. I don't enjoy the experience very much. I don't like football, and I sometimes will try to talk people into watching a couple of rugby matches to get the sense of what it feels like for them to make their own judgment, not because I want more fans for rugby, but I think that they're missing out. I think you're not spotting it. I've been trying it for 20 odd years with my wife and got nowhere, by the way. But I'm trying to get people to say, well, look, I'll have a look. Yeah, I agree with you. It is a good sport. That's great. I've enjoyed it. I'll watch it from now on. And something's happened. Now, OK, rugby's presumably considerably less important than religion. But if you like Mike, who was on earlier, he is absolutely convinced that his life is substantially better than it would have been without his God.
But that's good
and therefore wants you to benefit from that also. Yeah. Now, what's wrong with that? That's a
nothing
very decent
at all.
thing.
No, you perhaps I'm not expressing myself very well. There's nothing wrong with that. All good to him. What I think is dangerous are not necessarily Mike, but there's others who will, push forward that if you do not believe in this particular God, this particular Saviour, you will burn in hell ever after. Well, to me and you, it doesn't affect us. Yes, I can cope with that. To other people, that's very damaging, and they are genuinely frightened for their soul, if you like, because they've been told and battered with this. That's what I find alarming. Now, this is by no means, as you rightly say, the vast majority of religious believers. It's not, but they're a significant minority that are basically off the trolleys. And by doing so, they are expounding, you'll die in hellfires. I mean, you have an example. You have Muslims who believe that Muhammad was the prophet. Yes, great. You have a Christian believes Jesus was their saviour. They both believe the other will die in, hellfire for eternity. So, who's right? I mean,
well, you're wrong is the answer to that. No, that's no longer the case. I'm sure that was the position of the Zealot, but even the Zealot now seems to be saying that they're of the traditional religions, and that's the three main ones: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. All of those three now say there is only one God. Allah is just another name for the Christian God and the like. I think that's the way. As you say, there are barn pots in each of those faiths who believe differently, but the reality is that most of them believe that there is just the one God, and they've chosen different routes to arrive there.
Well,
we shall see. We'll all find out eventually.
One very last quick point.
You'll have to be very quick.
Very quick. There was a British athlete, a woman, saying she hopes to be medalled in Beijing. Now, I'm sorry.
Prepared to.
Why can't they use English? It's just idleness. The Yanks can't be bothered to say, I would like to win a medal. They're now being medalled. Well, she might be medalled with, but not in the way she thought.
I'll leave it there. Good on you, Gren. Cheers, mate. Medalled. My mother used to say, stop meddling with that.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Headline News.
The former Manchester City footballer Joey Barton has been sentenced to 6 months in jail after a fight outside a fast food shop in Liverpool. An investigation is thought to be underway after a prisoner took another hostage at Risley Jail near Warrington this morning. And members of the Police Federation in England and Wales are believed to have voted overwhelmingly in favour of lobbying the government for the right to strike. It's all because of a row over pay. Manchester's weather dry and sunny, highs of 16 Celsius. I'm Anna Dawson.
BBC Radio Manchester 2020 traffic.
M62 traffic coming down off the Pennines from junction 20 Rochdale onto 18 Simister Island, moving well at the moment. East and westbound traffic, in fact, doing well. And on the M60 again, no reported delays. I certainly can't see anything on the sensor information board. Everything does seem to be moving at a nice steady pace. Don't forget, if you can update me, do get in touch hands-free. 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Will Perry.
Manchester United will be training at the Luzhniki Stadium in Moscow this afternoon ahead of tomorrow night's Champions League final against Chelsea. There have been questions raised about the pitch, which has only been laid 15 days ago. It's bumpy and has bare patches, but Sir Alex Ferguson will be heartened by hearing that United have absolutely no intention of selling Cristiano Ronaldo.
UEFA have admitted they're slightly concerned about the appearance of the surface for the final, but don't believe it will hamper the players. The artificial pitch, which England played Russia on at the same stadium last year, has been torn up and at great expense replaced with grass from Slovakia. The man responsible for that transformation is an Englishman, Matt Frost.
I'm totally disappointed with the whole project and what we're presenting for the final. It's acceptable, but it's a big personal disappointment for me and the project as a whole, because things haven't gone very well from the start, to be honest. That's Russia, I'm afraid. It's not a perfect world.
Well, win or lose here in Moscow, one issue for United to resolve is the future of Cristiano Ronaldo. His 41 goals this season have again increased speculation about a possible move to Spain. The Portuguese has made no secret of his dream to one day play for Real Madrid. However, United's chief executive David Gill says Ronaldo is not for sale.
I'm sure he'll be with us for many years to come. You know, he's clearly, as you quite rightly say, one of the best players in the world, if not the best, and he's at a great club winning trophies. He enjoys it immensely here. You can just tell that when you speak to him. So why would he want to leave? We have no intention of letting him go. We will make sure that he's very happy here, and as we do with all our top players.
David Gill ending that report there from Steve Wyeth in Moscow. And you can hear Steve at the Luzhniki Stadium in a special Manchester Sports from 6 tomorrow evening with all the build-up and full commentary of the game. Rochdale's Dave Perkins will find out later this afternoon if he'll be able to play in the League Two playoff final against Stockport at Wembley. He was sent off in the semi against Darlington, but the club has appealed and is waiting to hear if that red card will be rescinded. We'll keep you up to date as soon as we hear. Meanwhile, if you want to go to Wembley with Rochdale on Monday, you better start walking now. The club says 52 coaches are fully booked, but there are 3 left, so get those tickets as soon as you can. Liverpool have made their first transfer move of the summer, signing Borussia Dortmund's Philippe Dagen on a free transfer. The Switzerland international defender will move to Anfield on July the 1st, when his current deal with the German club ends. Steve Coppell's future as Reading manager will become clear this afternoon. The club's called a press conference for 2:30, where they'll reveal if the former Manchester City boss is staying on at the Madejski Stadium. He's been considering his future following the club's relegation to the Championship. In cricket, England have called up Hampshire seamer Chris Tremlett into their 12-man squad for the second test at Old Trafford. That's after Matthew Hoggard broke his thumb in Yorkshire's championship match against Durham. England drew the first test at Lord's yesterday, but having won 4 of their last 5 tests in Manchester, Michael Vaughan's side will go into the match in confident mood.
It's very English-like to just write off a team and to say that they're not very good. You know, they're a very good team. They've got a lot of experience. Yeah, they've got some inexperience as well. But, you know, within that, they have a lot of experience and also a lot of fight. So the next 2 games are going to be tough. But I know if we play like we can play, we're going to put them under a lot of pressure, and I expect us to win the series. But it's not going to be easy picking.
In rugby union, Leicester centre Dan Hipkiss has been called into the England squad for next month's New Zealand tour. Hipkiss replaces fly half Danny Cipriani, who faces 6 months on the sidelines after suffering a fractured dislocation on his right ankle. Martin Johnson also has Charlie Hodgson from Sale, Ollie Barkley and Toby Flood available to him. And in Rugby League, Oldham say Sunday's Northern Rail Cup quarter-final at Batley has been moved to a 12 noon kick-off. That's because Leeds United play in the League One playoff final at 3 o'clock. And Wakefield hooker Tavita Leolatu will be out of action for 3 months after breaking his hand.
Your Sunday Morning Lion with Mike Shaft.
Why do we still find it a bit of a taboo subject to discuss money and debt?
I don't know. We're just very British about it, aren't we? It's something that's not a taboo subject because it's definitely something we need to get out in the open.
Mike Shaft.
Summing up the mind of God, how do you do that?
Wow, I'm glad that somebody is thinking these very, very deep thoughts. I may not understand what he's saying.
Why? Because you don't have to.
No, not so much don't have to as can't. But I think it's important.
Manchester's faith, spirit and life's difficult questions with Mike Shaft.
Are you seeing a difference?
Sunday morning from 7 on BBC Radio Manchester.
I don't know who sent this text, but it says, look around, turning away from God's word has improved society? I think not. Mike in Lee, my brother's a born-again Christian and I'm a born-again beer drinker. When I suggested to him that the Bible might be fiction and indeed a bestseller of its time, he went off on one. They're a touchy lot, these Christians. That's Mike from Lee. Gary in Manchester. Alan, I'm very religious. When that Mother Teresa died, I changed the words of the song Candle in the Wind to Sandal in the Wind. Just like Elton did for Diana. Bible bashers infuriate me. All that preaching does me head in. It's like listening to a double glazing salesman. Alan, do the Godbotherers know that the Holy Trinity consists of Law, Charlton and Best? That's Bert in Manchester, in Macclesfield, I think. Rodney in Oldham, hi.
How are you, Alan? Okay.
I'm very well, yes.
I'd just like to say, I mean, I've listened to you for a number of years, like the lady that was on before, and you are in a privileged position to sit there, and I don't know when your contract is up for renewal, but they must give you a wage rise, because the debate that you've got going, and you have done for the last 2 days, I think is what everybody wants nowadays, because nobody can say anything about religion. Nobody can say anything due to the fact that either their work commitments or, for want of a better word, people will be straight on their back. And you have done it. You've actually come out and said, that's crap, I don't believe in it. If you want to believe it, that's up to you, but I believe it's crap. And I'd just like to congratulate you for that.
All right, well, you have done. Thank you very much. Shirley says, Dear Alan, I've mentioned before I'm a self-confessed atheist. You don't have to... I'm sorry, for a self-confessed... oh, blimey, should I start again? I've mentioned before, for a self-confessed atheist, you don't have to give God some free airtime. You're in danger of becoming a born-again Christian. Perhaps he's chosen you to spread the word. You could replace Alan Jones on Sunday when he takes his next holiday. You even might break into television by presenting songs of praise. 2 days of religion's too much, even for an open-viewed person like me. Thank you, Shirley. And I did used to work on a religious programme. I used to be the resident non-believer on Heaven and Earth. Yeah, that was quite fun. And still no lightning. Stuart in Newell Green, hi.
Alan, I've listened to the debates on God bothering and so on and so forth the last 2 days. My mother, like yours, no doubt, an angel. And I'm not coming from this, my point, I'm an
You make a presumption. My mum was a lot of things. I think angelicism was beyond her. But go on.
Doubt it. But like everybody's... My mother was a devout Catholic, brought up in a devout Catholic family. She was orphaned at the age of 9. And she had a terrible, cruel upbringing amongst so-called Christians. She actually renounced her religion. Finally, we had a long discussion, and she said, when you were born, they sent the police to my dad. The priest got in the lift, and I ordered him out. She said it was like a weight lifted off my mind. And I've no problem with anybody having a belief, but leave me with my disbelief. When you were talking about the book yesterday, and certain lines and phrases, if that's the right terminology, and God created man in his own image, why is so many of these religious bigots in America, why do the people who believe in an all-loving God crash airplanes into buildings, killing mostly, obviously, innocent people? Why?
Well, obviously, nor I suspect anyone else can answer that. But to measure a group, whether it's a religious group, a national group, a sporting group, to measure a group by a minuscule minority is frankly unwise. Now, that's not to say you'll come to the wrong conclusion. I've no idea. It depends on the group. But it's like measuring the United Kingdom and using only the top of Ben Nevis as the measure. And if you said, well, there's Ben Nevis, and I'm stood on the top 5 metres of it, and frankly, I think that Britain must be a deserted place with a lot of wind, a bit of snow in the winter, and you'd be wrong, because you're not assessing the whole, you're only assessing the bit that sticks up.
Yeah.
And so to judge those of faith by the actions of some who also have a professed faith but are manifestly evil is... I mean, it's unfair on the religion, but I'm not really bothered about being unfair on religion. But I think it's just unwise. I think it's just evidence of a restricted view of oneself.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not... This is a bit corny, but I have got a good friend here in Wythenshawe who's a minister of a church minister. I'm not going to name the religion or the branch of religion.
Okay.
And I really trust him as a good friend.
Mm.
And I just, as I said, leave me with my disbelief, and I'll leave you with your belief. 3 things I'll be very quick. The person that sent you a text said she confessed to being an atheist.
Mm.
Who did she confess to?
I think
I'm on the phone.
I don't think it was that Roman Catholicism confession. I think it was telling her friends. And she was quoting me. She was saying that I was a self-confessed atheist.
Right.
And I suppose this is my confessional, if indeed it is one.
Yeah. The second one is,
Go
as
on.
I said from lines from the Bible, God created man in his own image. As a gay guy, and you've got to listen to the bigots again. But I'll leave you with this thought, Alan.
Go on.
Do what I'm going to do. I'm going to repent. As a sinner, I'm going to repent now and avoid the rush of doomsday. Cheers, mate.
Have a good day.
Cheers.
Yes, repent now and avoid the rush at doomsday. I think I can see that appearing on a poster outside a church before too long. Right next to the one that tells you how much money they've given them to make sure the roof don't leak. Margaret in Rochdale. Hiya, Margaret.
Hiya.
What have you got for us?
What I forgot? Well, if there's a God, it must be Keith Hill at the moment in Rochdale.
Yes, he could indeed walk on water in Rochdale
at
presently.
the moment.
Yeah.
But as for my bugbear at the moment is trying to get tickets for Wembley and having to go through Ticketmaster.
Yeah.
Having to pay all the extra charges at Rochdale. You know, for Rochdale.
Yeah.
The fans have turned out for them, you know, home and away. All right, not early on in season, but, you know, when it's got... They've turned out for them. They've given the best, and now they're being penalised when you go for a ticket.
Yeah, unfortunately, and it is unfortunate, unlike some of the Premiership clubs, they don't really have the staff to deal with that, or even, to be honest, the administrative technology.
I do understand that because I've queued up. I was second in the queue for a coach ticket this morning, and I was two and a quarter hours.
Yeah.
So I understand about the staffing, but what I can't understand is how Stockport can do it.
Well, Stockport is a rather different entity than Rochdale. For a start, they've got A, an awful lot more money, and B, they are accustomed to selling tickets because they've also got in place, I don't know how they sell their tickets, but they've also got in place a ticket-selling machine for a Premiership rugby club.
Right.
So Stockport play on the same ground as Sale Rugby Club. In fact, I think Stockport football for a while was owned by Sale Rugby Club. Whether it still is, I don't know. So it's that kind of thing. It's the technology, basically.
It has just been so frustrating, though. I'm taking my grandchild, you know, and like my brother, my nephew, quite a few in the family that are season ticket holders. Everywhere you go, season ticket holders are prioritised. You know, and they're treated with a bit more. Because they are your faithful fans, aren't they? You know what I mean? I'll be honest with you, I'm only going because nobody else... He has been to the match, my grandson, but there's nobody else to take him. You know, he's only 8-year-old, so I'm...
So you can't really let him go on his own, can you?
No, can I?
You'll be taken away by the social services.
But it's just
Unless,
so
of course, your
annoying
name was
that-
McCann, and then there'd be a
Well,
£5 million campaign for you, but
Yeah.
otherwise, yeah.
But it just so annoying me that it's cost $4.90 for the postage, and plus whatever percentage they've took.
Yeah,
You know, and it's per
I don't know what
ticket.
the alternative is, though, because the alternative might well have been for Rochdale to say, well, I'm sorry, we haven't got a shop, we can't sell them. So you can't have any tickets
Yeah.
because we haven't got the facilities
They've got
to
a
sell
shop
them.
and they've got a
No, I
ticket
mean,
office, yeah?
they have, but that ticket office is not geared up to sell the kind of numbers they've been
Yeah.
selling. I mean, I can't remember there was the last time a queue to get into Rochdale Football Club at Spotland when the match was on, let alone buy tickets.
No.
I mean, you go there with a whippet and they think, blimey, these people are bringing whippets, let's start stocking dog food, they're so desperate.
Hey, we're not that bad up here, you know. We're not that bad.
I wasn't having a good at Rochdalians, just the fact that Spotland is better known for its tumbleweed. Do have a good day, Margaret, and the best of luck. I can't wish you luck with the match because, of course, if I do, I'll be getting snotty letters from Stockport.
Well, yeah.
So I hope it's a 0-0 draw and they just keep getting 0-0 and they have to play till a week on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Have a good day, love. Ta-ra
All
now.
right, thanks, bye.
And an email for a text from somebody purporting to be Dr. Rowan Williams. I totally agree with your views on religion. Keep it up. Thank you very much, Dr. Rowan Williams. Oh, hang on, there's an apostrophe. Dr. Rowan Williams is barber. Well, you've no else to. Ta-ra now.
There's a small matter of a huge football match.